Well, Mark, you and me, bird fear, I see you. I'm with you. You're not alone.
I cannot think about ostriches without thinking about emus, and then I think about ham, and then I get really hungry. Have you ever had an emu?
No.
Tastes just like ham.
Gross. I don't know
And
anything about
they
it.
look like an ostrich, but they taste like ham.
If you're new to this podcast, if you've just found us and you've subscribed, just hang on, okay? Next week will be better. Hello and welcome back to Reactivity TV. I'm Amy Albero and I'm a licensed therapist.
I am Chris. I'm not a licensed therapist. I'm just a guy who watches some TV with his wife sometimes and has some opinions. And here I am, perhaps to talk about those opinions.
Oh, perhaps.
Sometimes. I'm not very opinionated on most things,
Our last episode of Reactivity TV would beg to differ.
I get a lot of criticism from your mother. Yeah, she said I talked too much. It was hard to listen to because I wouldn't shut up. That's a direct quote.
Yeah. I heard about it from her too. But I'm imagining and I'm welcoming all of the opinions that you will have as we talk about Joan's season of The Golden Bachelorette. It is the inaugural season of The Golden Bachelorette, and we are here for it. And today, whenever you're watching this, we're going to be doing a little intro preview, our pre-thoughts to Joan, to her season, what we're looking for, what we think she is looking for, and go from there before we get to the kickoff of the season.
Yeah, and we'll do a little bit of Meet the Guys.
Mm-hmm.
We've all seen the promo materials at this point. I have to say, I am here for it. I know that we weren't really excited about Joan when we first heard the announcement, but then as we, sat on it for a little bit of time, we both really warmed up to the idea. But after coming off of Jen's season, I could use a little golden in my life.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
And we're going to get into that, and perhaps we should refresh the audience's memory about our initial reactions to Joan as well.
Mm-hmm.
But before we do, please hit that like button at the bottom of this video and hit that subscribe button if you are not a subscriber already. If you are new here, or maybe you've just been lurking, we are really trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. We are so close at the time of recording this. We are at 991 subscribers.
92.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah, we gained another one today.
All right, so we are just 8 away from getting to 1,000. So one small little tap of your finger or of your mouse will get us there, and we really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, and please also hit that bell icon so that you're alerted anytime we post new content to the channel.
All right.
All right, so
We're here.
Let's get right into it. So Joan Vassos, I believe that's how we pronounce it, 61 years old. They have found 24 eligible bachelors that have that supposedly have passed the public vetting process of 2024. So we'll see how that goes. Ages range from 57 to 69, I believe it is. Yes, 57 to 69. So a little bit younger than Gary's season, but Gary was also 10 years older.
Yeah.
So makes sense. One thing that I think is interesting is we're sort of in that kind of like overlapping period where some of these men don't appear to be retired yet. Some of them are actually, maybe as many as, 8 to 10 years off of like true retirement, whereas others are, kind of deeply into that stage. So
Yeah.
first things that's kind of the first thing I noticed about kind of the group of guys. But we did get bios on the 24. I have to
Bios.
say,
I mean,
not great bios.
They're very light.
Very skimpish. But we did also get a nice little introduction montage video where we got, kind of some talking points or some skits with each of the 24. So, yeah, that's my kind of quick initial take on things. Where are you at? What are you thinking with what we've seen so far?
Yeah, well, listen, you had started us off by saying that you are excited for a season of Golden and in the Golden era. And I really am too. I think that while, as I said many times throughout Jen's season, I found her season to be incredibly relatable to dating in your mid-20s. As someone who has matured past that point, I'm really looking forward to meeting a group of people who know who they are, or have more of an opportunity to have learned where they are, who have been a Jen before and have learned from that, and like kind of us being able to kind of play the tape forward. I think I'm looking for more substance. I think I'm looking for deeper conversations. I'm really excited about that. And people that, again, have perspective on life. And I think one of the things that as a viewer made it like frustrating to watch Jen is that her perspective just seems so skewed because she, of course, didn't have enough life experience to have a more grounded perspective. Like the toxic relationships that she's had are just kind of a blip that she probably, hopefully 10, 20, 30 years from now isn't going to be as focused on as she is now. And I'm looking forward to meeting people who are in a part of life where they have more to their life than just their relationship. They have more to their identity than their relationship status. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And I'm interested to see the comparison between the Golden Bachelor and Golden Bachelorette cast.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on a lot of things that I want to get into in a few minutes. I think I generally agree with everything that you're saying. I found Jen's season to be a tough watch just because of the lack of maturity across the board. And I'm really looking forward to, an older cast where it's going to be, I would say, a little more insightful, a little more informed, and a little more grounded. And a lot, like I'm good for kind of the nonsense right now. But before we get too much into those details, let's back up for a little bit. So let's remind everybody sort of our opinions of Joan when she was on Gary's season, and kind of what our original thoughts were when we did the announcement video several months ago.
Yeah.
So by and large, we liked Joan on the season. She didn't get a lot of airtime. She basically had one date and then she was off. I think it was episode 3, maybe 4. But we did generally like her. She had a really impactful ending statement that really stuck with you. You actually cried multiple times on rewatches. I think if you watch it now, you probably still would cry. But I got that same sentiment from many older women. Your mother, my mother, they both watched, Golden Bachelor. And so she made a real impact with limited airtime. And I think that's ultimately why she was picked to be the Golden Bachelorette. That being said, when she was picked, we both said that she wouldn't have probably been our pick. Initially, that was our knee-jerk reaction. And part of that was because she didn't get a lot of airtime. We thought that there might have been more entertaining people that might have carried a season better. But then as time went on, we warmed up a little bit. We let it stew for a couple of days. And by the time we recorded, we were like, no, you know what? I'm here for it.
Yeah.
So that's my recollection of the history.
No, that's spot on. And, I think that, again, we, just to reiterate a lot of what you said, like we didn't know her enough, but she almost felt like a little bit of a boring pick, and boring in terms of like predictable, but also boring in terms of like not really knowing her personality. And again, always the question of, can this person carry a show? Like we are making a show here. And would Joan almost be a little bit too perfect, in a sense, And again, that how hard it is to be a lead on this show. Because on the one hand, I'm saying, gosh, Jen is too much drama and too messy. And on the other hand, I'm saying like, God, Joan would make a bad Bachelorette because she'd probably be too perfect and tied up. So I recognize the contradiction there. But I think a good lead is somewhere in the middle. And we don't know enough about Joan or didn't know enough about Joan at the time to be able to identify what kind of lead she would be. And so it's not that I was necessarily disappointed. I can't think of who else I would have rather had. And so I'm excited at this point. I'm excited. I want to see what she does. I like her story. I am rooting for her. I think that she's very clear on what her values are. So as we get closer to it and I learn a little bit more about Joan, I'm amending my reaction.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about what we're hoping. We've already kind of touched on it, so we probably don't have to go too deep into it. But in terms of the show, what are we looking for? Forget about who the lead is for a moment, who the guys are. Like, what do we want from the first season of The Golden Bachelorette?
Well, I know you want better dates.
I want way better dates. And she said at the after the final rose for Jen's season that they were doing a whole bunch of brand new dates that have never been done before. And after Jen's season, which was an awful season of dates, I am here for it, and I am hoping that is not false hype because I'm all about some better dates.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So what am I looking for? I'm looking for Joan to use hindsight as the greatest tool that can exist. We saw what happened on Gary's season
Mhm.
and well, actually what happened after Gary's season. We saw that clearly conversations were not fully had. I mean, we're inferring that, but like, I'm hoping that she can learn from the man who went before her to see like, okay, what really worked? Like, what did I like? And then what, if I want a different outcome than Gary, what do I need to do?
Mhm.
And so that's what I'm really hoping for. I'm hoping that she gets down to business, you know, and has these conversations and that we get to see them as well. That was one part that I really felt like was missing in The Golden Bachelor is we didn't really know a lot about these women and like what their lives were like outside of like their relationship status. And that was like a very big turning point for Teresa was learning about her career and learning about how meaningful it was to her. And again, potentially one of the reasons that their relationship ended was because she wasn't really ready to retire or move or etc. And so I'm just, again, hoping that we're able to see these people as well-rounded and as a result have conversations that are more well-rounded and not just having the lead be the focal point on the pedestal like we see every season.
Yeah, we were very high on the actual conversations that we did see. We thought they were more mature, more deep. And the one thing that we got out of the Golden Bachelor season was a feeling that there was a lot less clout chasing and a lot more people that were there for the right reasons. But the one thing that I don't know that a lot of people were really ready for was that the 50 year age difference here means that the actual conversations, just because they're having better conversations, deeper, more insightful conversations, still doesn't necessarily mean that they are the correct conversations. And there was no model for Gary, right? And so, the fact that he and Teresa, were divorced in basically a month is quite telling when you look back with hindsight, to your point, where, yeah, like those were conversations about the finances, about moving, about being proximity to the family and whatnot. That these are things that probably should have been had, these conversations, but clearly they weren't, or they weren't at the level and the depth, or people weren't necessarily being honest about it. Not necessarily they were lying, but they weren't either being honest or realistic with themselves. And it's so interesting to think of how positive we were on all of the conversations we were seeing and how we said this is a new and interesting and different era for the franchise. And yet they still were not the correct conversations in the context of the new life. It's so interesting when you look at somebody in their 60s and 70s and how more tied down they are than somebody in their 20s and 30s. A 20 or 30-year-old, by and large, can get up and move. There's not too many that just can't get up and move.
Right. Likely, if you can go on a show for 8 weeks and like leave your job for that long, like you can also move.
Yep. But that is not necessarily the same because you can go for 8 weeks, but at the same time, you leaving for 8 weeks as an elder is vastly different than leaving for 8 weeks as a 20 or 30 something because of the family component and the grandkids and whatnot. So those strong
mortgages, etc.
Yeah. Well, I would hope most people at 70 have gotten rid of their mortgage, though not all. Know. Yeah, not all of them, but yeah. And I would hope that most 30-year-olds have a mortgage. You shouldn't, maybe not.
Well, we know that that's not true.
That's not true either. That's actually not good advice either. Maybe you want a mortgage, maybe not. All depends. Email me, I'll work you through it. To carry on some of the themes, I already said, I'm really looking forward to some maturity, but really kind of the byproduct, the step forward from the maturity is I want the insight, right? One thing, you and I are late 30s, early 40s. We have been together for 17 years. I know what it takes to have a good, strong relationship that's going to last 17 years. That does not mean that I have any idea what it takes to have a good, strong relationship that's going to last 30 years. And I am really looking forward to seeing from people that did have great relationships and what insights that they can give. Because I do think in Gary's season, we got some good insights. We really did. And for a lot of people out there, you and I are fortunate in that we have parents that have been married for 40-ish years each, right? Give or take. And so we've had great parenting modeled for us and great relationships modeled through our parents. But a lot of people don't have that. And, I got to say, most of media is not focused on those values at this point. And I do feel like this is an opportunity where Hollywood is going to bring to the masses potentially some insights into what it takes to be a great longstanding relationship. And I am really here for it.
Well, it is in some ways aspirational, right? Like, I hope that we have a relationship like that lasts as long as our parents, or as long as, Joan.
I mean, you don't have a choice. I'm not going anywhere.
Well, you know what I mean?
I will contest any divorce you put in front of me.
but it
refuse to sign.
But it is, again, like, going back to Jen's season, like, I've been there, like, and yeah, I can learn about myself in some way, but like, I want to see where I'm going. And so I think there is, the aspirational aspect of it that's cool. But again, I think that I think I'm looking for more quality of the conversations. And as you were saying, like, we heard from the cast in the Golden Bachelor season, like, a lot about their relationship life, but I'd love to hear about other parts of their life too.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's one other thing that I'm really kind of interested to see in this season, to see how the dynamics play out. And that is, I know what it's like when I was 20 and 30-year-old. We've seen plenty of casts with 20 and 30-year-old men. And these dynamics that play in the alpha, the competitiveness. And I am just dying to see how a room of 60-year-old men, how much of that competitive can I expect, right? At 60, am I still going to have to be the alpha in the room? Like, how much of this jockeying is going to be? How much of it just going to be a bunch of old men just talking about golf? Like, I'm wildly fascinated at seeing that aspect. And I think that this is something that probably most women won't care about. So most of the audience won't care about this. And it'll go under the radar for a lot of people. But for me, I'm like really fascinated to just watch the dynamics in the house relative to what we see with younger, with a younger cast.
Yeah. And I think that was one of the highlights of Gary's season was the relationships between the women, the cast.
How there really was not
so
much
beautiful.
kindness. It was people that are like beyond the, it's you're now the old man yelling at the cloud a little bit, right? But it's just like, I don't care anymore about all the BS. Like, I'm just not into it. Not here for that. Like, I'm just, I'm gonna enjoy my years in whatever facets that's gonna play out.
Yeah.
Okay, let's switch over to talking about Joan and what she specifically has stated she wants and what we hope to see from her this season. So you've seen more of the promotional materials than I have. So why don't you start us off? What has she said she wants?
Well, I think, let me back up. I will answer that. But okay. I think a couple of things that are really important to remember about Joan as we think about what she wants are like the contextual factors here. You mentioned her age. She's 61. It appears that she is still working. She works in alumni relations in Maryland, which is where she's from. She's been in this job, this specific role, since 2021. So she has, some bit of tenure at where she's at. We also know that she was married to her husband, John, for 32 years, and he died in 2021 from pancreatic cancer. She is a mother of 4 and a grandmother of 2. And we do know from her time on Gary's season that the reason that she left at that time was in order to be a mom. And she has said, family comes first, period. Once a mother, always a mother. I always choose my kids first. So again, factors, qualities, values that are really, really important to Joan. And she shared some qualities that she's looking for in a suitor. Quote, "I'm very picky about a man being a gentleman," she explained. "Somebody with a big heart, somebody who is generous, and also someone who is humble." So I think those things all matter as we go into this season, kind of what she has told us with her words and what she's also told us with her actions.
Yeah, I feel like there's definitely a picture that has been painted here. And, it sounds like she's looking for what in modern parlance we would call a high value man.
You're assuming that she might want someone like in a more from a traditional values perspective.
I would think so. Although what 61-year-old individual isn't looking for more traditional values? When we consider traditional values, usually what we're talking about are the values of somebody that are in their
Right.
60s.
That's fair.
That I mean, that I think from a traditional, like classic or some of these other terms, oftentimes they're relative, right?
Mhm.
What we really usually mean when we say that are what our grandparents did,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm. Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, with this being said, do you feel like there might be some like exclusionary criteria of some of the contestants?
I am so happy because you asked this, because I have sort of a question that I think some of the guys are making a strategic mistake here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We've seen a lot of the guys in the promotional materials and in their bios leaning into, well, I've got a big family. I'm a girl dad. I'm a this, I'm a that. She's got her family already. And so this is sort of the question I would have. If you are in your 60s, from what you know about Joan, would you want somebody that came from a big family? Right? I would think that I want somebody who demonstrates, strong ties to family, or that family is valuable and important. But I just watched Gary and Teresa break up. In some part, the stated reason was because of the distance and not wanting to leave family and things like that. So I don't know if I'm going on this show, I'm going to say, hey, I got 4 daughters, and 16 grandkids, in a state that's, has to be at least a plane ride away from where you are. Is that a strategic mistake on the part of maybe casting and on the part of these guys?
Yeah, I think it might be something that they are thinking of as a strength, which of course it is, but yeah, might draw out more of these conversations, right? Like that Gary and Teresa did not have, or we did not see them have on camera anyway. So I don't know that in terms of the strategy, or as I put an exclusionary criteria, but it's definitely like, okay, there's a conversation to be had there. And then the way that you had talked about it with the Golden Bachelor season of like maybe people not being honest with themselves is like, well, how do you even know? Like, right? Like, how do you know if I'm a male contestant on the show and I'm, the girl dad or whatever, and I've got grown kids, and I might think, you know what, like they're in their 20s, like they're cool, they're good. And then when, so of course, like I'll move to Maryland, I'll be near your family, we're just a plane ride away from mine. But then when push comes to shove, like, or maybe when you're really faced with the reality, you don't really know until you are put in that situation. And so that's what would cause some risk for me is, again, not that girl dad would be lying, but that he might not even know because he's not been tested.
Yeah. Morals, principles, and ethics are wonderful to claim to have, but you never know if somebody truly has them until they've been tested. And it's kind of the same thing in a situation like this with relationships. Like, how far are you willing to break and bend? In a situation like this, you might actually just not know. But I just think that this is a really interesting question, because you see this a lot with people, not just on reality shows, but everywhere, where, you do like a surface level analysis of the situation and you say, hey, she's got a strong family. If I demonstrate that I got a big, strong family, we're going to bond and we're going to connect over this. But meanwhile, if you sort of like think about it and just go one layer deeper, the first, and just ask like, it's like one derivative level of questions, right? Like, what would be the questions that I would have? The questions that I would think Joan would have in this situation are, okay, her own biasy of saying, well, I'm not leaving my kids, so is he going to leave his kids? Probably not. And even if he says he would, do I believe him? So I'm interested to see how that dynamic plays out. These types of things. I think these guys have not thought this through, and they think it's a strength, and I think it's going to prove to be a weakness unless they live around the corner. Right. Like if they live, within say
like
5 hours,
distance,
4 hours, maybe drivable distance, not a big deal. Going back to your original question of exclusionary criteria, though, again, come back to what I kind of led off with. Some of these people are not retired yet, and they are theoretically, 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe 10 years away from actually retirement. So I do think that is going to play a factor. She's 61. She is still working. What are her plans? Is she retiring at 62? Is she retiring at 70? And is, depending on the situation of the guy, how flexible is she in planning her retirement around the guy she chooses, and vice versa? So I don't know that there's exclusionary criteria that I can identify, but I feel like what if I feel like we need to get some face to cameras from Joan, because there's got to be something in there that's a concern for her.
Oh, yeah. I mean, again, there's questions. By the way, our audience reminded us that they're called ITMs, in the moment interviews.
Then why did we call them face to cameras?
Because on other shows, they're called face to cameras.
Oh, so this is just a show situation.
But they're ITMs.
ITMs?
Right? Yeah, ITMs.
FTCs or ITMs? Mm-hmm. IDC.
IDK. So yeah, I think it just invites more questions, right? Because on the one hand, as you're saying, there is a conversation around retirement planning that I'd be interested in hearing about. But then if they are in two different stages of life, retired versus not, those are very different lifestyles as well. And so if there are a number of retired individuals on the cast list. And so I'd be really curious, like, okay, so what are you going to do all day? Like, what do you do? Or would you feel like I'm holding you've achieved retirement? Like, would you feel held back if I still wanted to work? That kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, trying to see do our lifestyles match up for this stage of life that we're both in, which are a little mismatched.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, potentially. Also, like, what is retirement going to actually look like? Mm-hmm. I mean, there are plenty of people I know that all they do is sail and golf. Mm-hmm. That's it. Other people, their retirements are traveling around together. Gary and Teresa, it seemed to be that they were thinking that their retirements were going to be a lot of travel, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that didn't come to pass. But
But the thing about retirement is, like, having been retired from your career doesn't necessarily mean you're done working per se. And obviously your life doesn't just become a vacation. And so, yeah, I think that's also what I would be interested in just having exposed to the audience, because we don't get this demographic on TV. Like, talk to us about retirement. Talk to us about how you plan for it. Talk to us about like how you intend to spend it, because I don't think it's just gallivanting around no one. I mean, very few people have amassed that much wealth that they can do that. Mm-hmm. And so, like, give me a realistic picture of how you got to retirement and how you're going to spend it. Because for the millennials watching, and like, retirement feels so far away and like almost impossible, to the earlier callback of like not even being able to buy a house, So like, set us up, please, Golden Bachelorette men. But I do think that, again, these different life stages or stages of life within a relationship are really important. I'm thinking about so many clients of ours that we've had where, one person has retired before the other, the second one retires, and it is like, wait, you're all up in my space, get out of here. And it just becomes a whole other adjustment that people need to contend with. And it would be a lot for, on some level, it would be nice for Joan and whoever she picks, if they end up together, to like, the fantasy would be that they continue like their Golden Bachelorette journey of like not having any responsibilities and getting all of that time to spend with one another. But it would probably be most healthy if they both, again, had independent lives and could kind of go back to status quo in maintaining some independence while still building their relationship. So I don't think having them set up to be like two retirees right out the gate is going to be a smart and healthy choice for them. If they don't have like a plan beyond, we're just going to travel.
Yeah, no, that's fair. All right, so let's transition over to some of the guys. We have not gotten very much material on them, but have any of them stood out thus far?
I mean, the one who obviously stands out is Mark, Kelsey's dad.
Of course, yeah.
He's a gem.
He's a smooth operator.
He's very attractive.
Can we just call it now Golden Bachelor Season 2? Like, I feel like they're already setting us up for that.
I think they are setting us up for it. We'll see what kind of presence he has.
I don't think... And again, I'm tinfoil hatting this a little bit, right? But I don't think they would have had the two of them sitting next to each other at Jen's finale episode in the audience if they were actually picked. Mm-hmm. It's just too on the nose.
Yeah.
And so
I agree.
So he can't win this season, but they liked him enough that they didn't hide him. Mm-hmm. I mean, they brought him back, right, from Joey's season, and they liked him enough to make sure he get front and center. I feel like they are already setting stuff. I'm calling it now. If there's Vegas odds, I haven't checked them, I'm putting money that Mark is Golden Bachelor number 2. Mm. Am I crazy?
No, I don't think you're crazy. I think that's kind of like, as an audience, what we want.
Oh, is that true?
Yeah.
Oh, he's a handsome guy too. Handsome guy, smooth operator. You know how much I love the former military guys. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm all in. I'm calling it now. ABC, mark for GB2.
Yeah. Mark, don't let us down.
Yep. All right. So there were three guys, Mark being one of them, that kind of stood out to me.
Mm-hmm.
Again, very little information, so I'm just winging this one. Jonathan. So big, jacked, black guy, was considering being a bodybuilder. Just seems like a real smooth guy. Just seems like a cool guy that I just want to like hang out with. So I'm interested to see this guy, and I want to see where he goes, how well he does, because he just looks like a cool guy, looks like a fun guy,
Attractive guy,
attractive,
fit guy.
yeah. If it doesn't look his age, so I'm all in on this guy. I want to see him go far.
Yes. So he's from Iowa, and he is a shipping consultant.
Okay, so he's from Iowa, a little far,
a little bit of a trek.
Little bit of a trek, but you know what? Maybe he doesn't have any kids. No ties.
Maybe
he's a shipping consultant,
can which be means, remote.
Well, probably can be remote. A and B
Coastal?
Also, that I feel like he's got the whole logistics of travel down, so he could probably like optimize and make a real efficient travel plan. We should call him to figure out our Miami schedule. Perhaps that'd be really good because it's going to be bad this season. We haven't even talked about this, but there's going to be a lot of remote episodes. Wednesday night viewing of this show is devastating for our travel schedule, because you are in Miami on Wednesday and Thursdays, and I am in Connecticut, so it's going to be a tough one. So perhaps we can get Jonathan to help us out, figure that one out. Can you put you in a container and ship you back and forth overnight?
Who else you got?
Okay, so this is sort of like I do not think he's got any prayer shot of winning, and maybe not even going far. But I am just like really excited to watch Jack. I mean, this guy, he just looks like he is going to be a problem, and he looks like he's going to be fun.
What based on what is he going to be a problem?
Just he's got that look of this guy. He's like he just has that look of that guy who's hanging out at the bar at that like the pool bar at like 2 a.m, and he's smoking his cigar and drinking his bourbon or whatever, and just like telling war stories. Like he looks like he's going to be so much fun, and I am here for it. I can't wait. I'm really excited. I think he seems, if there's anybody in this cast that based purely on bio and picture is gonna be problematic for the audience, it's gonna be him, and I am super excited for that.
We'll see. I mean, he's 68, so he's on the older end of guys. We'll see what that brings.
Yeah, you could just see him getting into bar fights. No, you don't see it.
I don't see it, but I'm looking at a very refined, posed photo of him.
Okay. Can we actually talk about the photos for a second, because this is driving me nuts. I am not a photographer or anything like that. I mean, as our audience knows, it took us 2 seasons to get the whole camera figured out and whatnot. But the pictures are bad, right?
The Entertainment Weekly photos we're talking about, like the cast photos.
They're not just bad; they're horrific. I mean, they're all sort of like washed out. Mm-hmm. You've literally got a tan background with behind a white guy wearing a tan shirt. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, what? There's no contrast here whatsoever. Then you have a lot of like really oddly posed, where it's just like, it almost feels like you're trying to get too like artsy with it.
Yeah, that's what it felt like to me.
Yeah. And the third complaint I have is more of a mechanical complaint. And that is, the pictures are all different shapes and sizes. And so for like a podcast like this, where I want to flashy images on the screen, I've got to go and like proceed to crop them all. But like, at least in the other seasons, like they were all well dimensioned. And so I didn't have to touch any of them, just download them, and now I can just post them up. These are going to be a nightmare. I'm gonna have to spend like a whole afternoon just trying to get them all somewhat in the same shape and whatnot, just so that I can put them up on the screen. So those are the 3 reasons why I think that the person who did the Entertainment Weekly cast photos should not be employed as a photographer. Right or wrong?
Let us remember the beginning of this episode when Chris was like, I don't have opinions.
I mean, these aren't really opinions. These are just objective facts.
I do think that in some ways the photos feel like mature. They feel like they're given like a level of
douchebaggery.
No, just like elevation. But yeah, I think they're almost like too obnoxious. Yeah, in that way.
Yeah. Pretentious.
Pretentious.
Perhaps?
That's the word.
Pretentious. That's the word. Yeah. Let's get the thesaurus out. Right.
But I think they also had them under this like sepia tone, which is like almost gives it like a golden hue.
Isn't that the one that you and Catherine like?
No.
Oh, did you complain about it one time?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe that's what I remember.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of golden hues, did you notice that I'm wearing gold today?
I
in
did.
honor of Joan's season.
This is the closest shirt I have to gold. But I got my shorts are tan. That's close, right?
Yeah. I mean, all of that being said, we are excited despite remote recordings, despite midweek airing.
ABC. No Wednesdays.
Well, what are they going to do? We have Monday Night Football.
We do have Monday Night Football. Do you want to do a podcast on Monday Night Football?
No.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
It's the Jets this week. Yeah. So anyway, those are my three guys I care about: Mark, Jonathan, and Jack, for three very different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But I could be completely wrong. They could all be duds.
I know.
But you know what? Like those are my early people that I'm excited to see. That is not predicated, or I am in no way, shape, or form saying that I think they're going to go far, they're going to get selected, they're going to win, or they're going to be the next Golden Bachelor. I'm just saying these are the three that I'm interested in seeing on screen.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, what about you?
Okay. So I'm really not sure who Joan's like type is going to be, but the guy that has stuck out to me is Ken. He's 60. Yeah. He's like on the younger side of things. He looks young, which I mean, none of the men actually look old, but he is an attractive guy. He's kind of like in the same ballpark as like Joan looks incredible. And so I think in some ways they're well matched. He is from Peabody, Mass.
Oh, he's out. See ya.
And he's a property management treasurer, but there's something about him and his look that like, maybe I can see him with Joan. But the other guy that I'm sort of fascinated by that I just want to see on my screen is Pascal. He's 69 years old from Chicago, Illinois. He's a salon owner. And he doesn't cook. So we got to love that.
He doesn't cook?
No, he isn't a great cook, but he makes great reservations.
Oh, okay. He seems like your type.
So I think, and he's an attractive guy, hair salon owner. I'm sure he'd like know how to do hair.
I am biased towards Pascal because I really enjoy Pascal the philosopher, who also happens to have a programming language named after him. And he also did a bunch of stuff in geometry. He has a whole bunch of geometric proofs. And so I'm like biased towards people named Pascal as a result.
Well, I hope that he, again, he seems like he could be entertaining, like add a little flair to the season. Mm-hmm. So I'm interested to see him.
He's an accented individual. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So bring a little culture to the season. Yeah. Whereas Jack is just going to be drunk laying on the floor, barfing all over himself. I am so in. I can't wait.
Typecasting him so bad. But we'll kind of see. I mean, okay, last question before we end for today. What do you think Joan's ending is? Does she end up with someone? Is she in a relationship? Are they still together? Does she get engaged?
Yeah, I think Joan has a strong sense of who she is. I think she has a strong sense of what she wants. I think she has a strong sense of what her values are. She's also beautiful, especially for her age. She does seem like a genuinely nice person, but she also does not strike me as a pushover. And thus, I think that there is a very high probability that she is going to end with somebody that I think that we would all agree and approve of. And I think that there's a high probability that they do make it, especially being able to draw on some of the correct some of the mistakes that the Gary season made. So I think it's more likely than not that she does end an engagement. I think it's more likely than not that they do make it in some form. Are they still going to be together? Like we called it. There was no way Jen was even ending the season and getting to that after the final rose with whatever guy she chose. I think that Joan, she'll be with the guy for at least some period of time after the show, and hopefully for a long period of time. But yeah, I talk about it all the time. understand what your own values are and then seek somebody out who has shared values. And I think Joan already has the first one down pat. She also was in a very long relationship. She understands what it's going to take. And it does seem, just at least on the surface, that she's got a decent group of guys, so far that so we'll see. What about you? What are your prognostications about the finale of?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I agree with you in terms of like her knowing her values, her knowing her worth, her being uncompromising. I do want to believe that she ends with someone. There's part of me that feels like she'd be really cautious about an engagement, given, again, what we saw Gary and Teresa go through.
But would they cast her
if she wasn't going to get engaged?
Like, that's the whole premise of the show. So it kind of feels like you're signing up for that.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah. Yeah. So I think that if she is, if she does get engaged, that she and her, whoever she chooses, are still together. I think she's drama free, though.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to see a golden wedding like in a month.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah. So one other thing before we get out of here for the day, did you hear that apparently after Joan went home for the season, she reported that she had apparently got a bunch of text messages that were all pics?
No, I did not hear that.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, real tragedy, disgusting people out there. I just have one question, really honestly. Joan, why didn't you respond to my text messages? What's up with that? No.
You're going to get us flagged for shocking content.
Oh, I save all my pics for you.
No, thank you. I don't want them either.
Well, what am I going to do with them all? All right. Anything else before we get out of here?
No. We will be back next week with the premiere of The Golden Bachelorette. We are so excited to be on this journey with you. Again, if you haven't already, please hit that like button at the bottom of this video and hit subscribe if you are liking our content. Let us know. Let us know in the comments. Let us know by subscribing, by sharing with a friend, all of that good stuff. It goes such a long way and really does mean so much to us when you do. Until next week, if you want to catch up with us, you can follow along with us on Instagram at Reactivity TV. You can follow me at Amy Albero LCSW. Send us questions, feedback, suggestions to reactivitytv at revivecfw.com. We will see you next week for the big day.
Jack, do not let me down.
Bye.
See ya.